you grab one of these that are in the seats around you. If you don't have a good Bible at home, please take one of these with you. We would love for you to take these. We've got like 1 million of them, and so that'll be a gift for you from us. We're on page 815. If you've got one of these Bibles, 815 of these Bibles in the book of Philippians. So you go ahead and start turning there. We're closing out chapter 2. We've been in the book of Philippians for, gosh, I guess about 2 months now. Did we start at the first of the year? Maybe it's 3 months. All right, so anyway, we've been in the book of Philippians, and we're going to reach the halfway point as we close out Philippians chapter 2 today. So that's page 815 there in your Bible. You know, when I was in school, from kindergarten all the way through high school, I mean, even into college, and then in grad school and working on my master's and all of that, there were 2 words that a teacher or professor or whatever would say that would produce just like this groan in my soul. And the words were group project. I mean, like any time a teacher said, "Oh, I'm going to give you guys a group project," there was just something within me that went, "Oh." Because a group project basically meant a couple of things. One, it meant the teacher was going to give you this huge project with lots of things involved and research, and you were going to have to be creative, and somebody was going to have to come up with drawings and models, and I mean, just all sorts of work. And this was back in the day when there was no Google, okay? It was you went to the library, and anybody remember the card catalog, you know? Okay, I mean, that's what, so I hated group projects because of that, because it was going to be this massive project. But the idea was, well, because you're in a group and because there's lots of you working on it, it won't be that big a deal, and you'll be inputting and working on it together and doing that. That's beautiful in theory. In the real world, that never happens. Okay, in the real world, in school, so you teachers take some notes here, all right? When you're given a group project, there's the responsible kid and everybody else, okay? And so the reason I would have this like just deep in my soul angst is because I knew that it was going to fall on me. Like it was going to be 3 days before the project was due, and I'm going to check in with the other people in my group and be like, "Hey, have you gotten this done?" "No, I haven't done that yet." You know, "Hey, I need you to get me this." "Well, I didn't do that." You know, and it's also kind of based on the idea that everybody in the group cares about the grade they get. And again, there's usually 1 or 2 in the group that actually cares whether they get an A or not. So it would kind of fall on my shoulders in terms of doing that project and getting the work done. And if you have a team where all the members of the team aren't doing the work they're supposed to be doing, if they aren't working toward a common goal, if they aren't trying to achieve the same thing together, then a group just doesn't work. It negatively affects your ability to get the job done. It negatively affects your ability to do a good job. Now, teachers would always tell us, particularly once you got into college and that kind of thing, and you would groan about a group project, they would say, "Well, you know, when you get out in the real world, you're going to have to work with people and work in groups." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, and if they act like these guys, I'll fire them." Okay? So it didn't quite translate into some of the real world things. Now, the life of following Christ, the life of being a Christian, of living in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ, like Paul says in Philippians 1:27, is a group project. It is a team effort. It requires, you can't do it alone. You can't do it by yourself. You cannot live the life of being a Christ follower by yourself. The idea of somebody trying to follow Jesus Christ without the support and the encouragement of other believers is absolutely foreign to the New Testament. You will not find anywhere in the New Testament instructions for being a loner Christian. You won't find it. You won't find, here's how to do it all by yourself. Here's how to be a monk. Here's how to, just be disconnected from the life of other believers and other Christ followers. The idea of being disconnected from other believers in a local church, from people who are praying for you and encouraging you and supporting you and teaching you, that idea cannot be found in the Bible. You need other believers on your team in life. In fact, Jesus said the distinguishing mark of a follower of Jesus Christ. He said, "By this will all men know that you are my disciples, by your love for one another." So Jesus says the thing that sets us apart as His followers is not how good Bible teachers we are. It's not about what kind of programs we're involved in. It's not how great our band is on Sunday morning. It's not, the list of beliefs that we adhere to. Now, all those things are important. It's not that we're going to throw those things out the door. But Jesus could have said a lot of things were what marks out His disciples. But He says, the thing that will mark you out as belonging to me is your love for one another. And so that happens in the context of relationships with other believers. The fellowship, the friendship, the loving relationships that we share with other believers mark us out as belonging to Jesus Christ. In fact, there are over 50 commands in the New Testament that you cannot fulfill on your own. They're called the one another's. Over 50 commands in the New Testament that it's impossible for you to do by yourself. Love one another. Pray for one another. Encourage one another. Forgive one another. Honor one another. Live at peace with one another. All these different commands that the Bible says you need other believers. You need a team working together with you for you to live out this life of being a Christ follower. That's, by the way, why it's so important for you to get connected as a believer with a body of believers, with a church. It's why it's important for you to get engaged and develop those relationships with other believers. It's why here at the Crossroads we say you need to get in a journey group. You need to share life with other believers, more than just sitting next to each other in some plastic chairs on Sunday morning. You need to get your feet under somebody else's table. You need to be on somebody else's couch. You need to be calling somebody else. You need those types of relationships in your life to live out what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. You need hangout time. Sometimes I think we forget the spiritual value of hanging out with other believers. With going to get a cup of coffee, with eating lunch with another believer, with calling somebody on the phone during the week just because you want to check in on them, sending somebody a text message to say, I'm praying for you and I love you. Making those connections throughout the week together. You need other believers because without them, you won't grow the way you're supposed to. Without them, you won't become the follower of Christ that you're supposed to be. Without them, you won't be able to function in this life the way that you are supposed to because you're going to get discouraged, or you'll get tired, or you'll be worried, or you'll be spiritually attacked, or you won't be faithful to the things that you need to be doing to become more like Jesus Christ. So what's all that have to do with Philippians? Well, in our study in the book of Philippians, Paul says, Philippians 1:27, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Now, literally, we looked at this when we looked at chapter 1. It says, conduct yourselves as citizens worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Act like a citizen of the gospel. Act like a citizen of heaven. Now, citizenship is something that takes place in the context of community. To be a citizen, you need other people. And so part of living in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ is living in community and being part of a community and connecting with other believers. Now, what's happening in Philippians, you'll remember, is there's some persecution that's starting to take place. It has begun to be difficult to be a Christian. It has begun to be difficult to stand up and say, I believe in God and I believe in Jesus Christ and my life has been transformed and changed and I no longer believe in those pagan religions. I no longer accept that the emperor is a god. I no longer worship the foreign god. I stand for Jesus Christ and I believe that He is the Lord of my life. And as a result, the Philippians have begun to experience some hardship, some persecution. Now, Paul is writing to the Philippians from Rome where he's in jail for proclaiming the gospel of Jesus Christ. So he identifies, he understands what that persecution looks like. He understands what that difficulty looks like. And so Paul is writing to them in that context to encourage them in the life of following Jesus Christ. And so in a broken world, in a difficult world, in a hard world, you need other people. You need other believers who are encouraging you, who are praying for you, who are supporting you. And so as that persecution arises, Paul says in the first chapter, at the first of chapter 2, he says, I don't want you to have an every man for himself mentality. And by the way, when life gets tough, that's often what happens. When life gets difficult, it's like we withdraw into our shells and we're just like, I'm just watching out for me. I'm going to protect me. I'm going to make sure I'm okay. And Paul essentially says to them at the first of chapter 2, I don't want you to be like that. I want you to be like-minded. I want you to be one in spirit. I want you to be one in purpose. He says, do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Do nothing from a selfish attitude. Do nothing out of a desire to promote yourself. Sharon, did I make you angry or something? Yeah, I know, she already told me. I'm just messing with her. All right. Do nothing out of selfish ambition. Do nothing out of vain conceit. Don't look out for your own interests, but look out for the interests of other people. Put other people ahead of yourself. He says, work out your salvation. When we looked at that, we said it was a plural. It's not just work out your salvation all by yourself, but together with other believers, working out. And we said working out doesn't mean figure out, and it doesn't mean work for. It means like you're exercising. You are letting what's on the inside work its way out in your life. And you do that together with other believers. He says, do everything without grumbling or complaining, which, by the way, those are community kind of instructions. Do everything without grumbling or complaining so that you shine like stars in a dark world. All of those are instructions about being a part of a team. In fact, Philippians chapter 2, for those of you who are in an administrative role, for those of you who are in a leadership role, or you're a boss at your work, Philippians chapter 2 is a great chapter to develop some team dynamics. To talk about, this is what we got to be as a team. No complaining. Put others ahead of yourself. Don't do anything selfishly. Don't do anything out of vanity. Don't grumble. Don't complain. Let's work together to work out what God is working in us. All of those some great team dynamics types of things. The point is, you need a team. You need other believers around you who are living the Christian life, and you need the right people around you. You see, here's the problem, is a lot of people surround themselves with the wrong kind of people. Okay, a lot of people have a messed up team in life. And just like I said, the reason I hated group projects when I was in school is because, I get stuck with people who don't necessarily want to do the project as well as I do. And yeah, I'm a little bit OCD and that kind of stuff, all right? You can tell by the chairs when you come in here. But the problem is that in team dynamics, a lot of times you've got the wrong people on your team. Listen, if the only people you're listening to are your jacked up friends, you're going to have a jacked up life. Okay? If the people you have surrounded yourself, like if you're seeking financial wisdom, you're having some struggles financially, and you go to your friends who are like double mortgaged and they've got $30,000 in credit card debt, and they don't know and you're seeking advice from them, it ain't gonna work, all right? If you're having marriage trouble and you're going to your friend who's been divorced 4 times, he is not the person you need to be talking to try to figure out how you need to live the life that you're supposed to live. And so who you surround yourselves with, who's on your team, is important when it comes to living the life that God has called you to. You need a team of people, the right people around you, and not just broken people. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, one of the things that's one of our core values here at the Crossroads is we accept everybody. And there are no perfect people allowed, okay? We're all messed up. We're all broken. But you just, when it comes to the people who are encouraging your growth in Jesus Christ, you need some people who are maybe a couple of steps ahead of you to encourage you, to support you, and help you understand what you need to do in life. All right, so all of that's driving it. That was a long introduction, all right, for us to get to where we're going, Philippians chapter 2. We're going to be looking at verses 19 through 30, 19 through the end of the chapter. Because at the end of chapter 2 of Philippians, we get a glimpse of a couple of guys who were on Paul's team. And Paul has gone through Philippians, and he starts out and he says, do nothing out of selfish ambition. Do nothing out of vain conceit. Put others ahead of yourself. Don't look out for your own interests, but look out for the interests of others. And he says, have this mind in you, which was also in Christ Jesus, who, though he existed as equal with God, he did not regard equality with God a thing to be selfishly grasped, and he emptied himself, and he poured himself out, and he became a servant, and being found in human appearance, he became obedient unto death, even death on a cross, and therefore God highly exalted him and gave him the name that it's above every name, that at the name of Jesus every knee should bow and every tongue confess that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. So all of that, he says, this is what Jesus is like. He was God. He poured himself out for other people. He emptied himself. He gave his life away for us. And because of that, God has exalted him. And so Paul is saying, you be like that too. You pour out your life. You work out what God is working in you. Work out your salvation with fear and trembling. And then he says to do nothing, or he says do everything without grumbling or without complaining. And so now he finally gets to the end of the chapter. And he gives these two guys as examples of that kind of attitude. And their names are Timothy and Epaphroditus. So let's go ahead and take a look at what Paul says about these two guys, keeping in mind the context of Philippians. Persecution for them, imprisonment for Paul, and in a broken world, you need the right people on your team. So Philippians 2, 19-30 says, I hope in the Lord Jesus to send Timothy to you soon, that I also may be cheered when I receive news about you. I have no one else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. For everyone looks out for his own interests. Sound familiar? Paul says that at the first of chapter 2. It says, everyone looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. But you know that Timothy has proved himself, because as a son with his father, he has served with me in the work of the gospel. I hope therefore to send him as soon as I see how things go with me, and I am confident in the Lord that I myself will come soon. But I think it is necessary to send back to you Epaphroditus, my brother, fellow worker, and fellow soldier. Okay, so to give you a little bit of background there on Epaphroditus. The Philippians had sent him to Paul because they heard that Paul was in trouble. They heard that Paul was in jail, and so they give Epaphroditus probably a financial gift to contribute to Paul's ministry. They probably send maybe some food, some clothes, a blanket, some supplies, some things that he may need. They send Epaphroditus there and essentially say, Epaphroditus, whatever Paul needs, you meet that need. Love him, encourage him, support him. You just be there for him. So Paul says, I'm sending back to you Epaphroditus, who is your messenger, whom you sent to take care of my needs. For he longs for all of you and is distressed because you heard he was ill. Indeed, he was ill and almost died, but God had mercy on him. And not on him only, but also on me, to spare me sorrow upon sorrow. Therefore, I am all the more eager to send him, so that when you see him again, you may be glad, and I may have less anxiety. Welcome him in the Lord with great joy, and honor men like him, because he almost died for the work of Christ, risking his life to make up for the help that you could not give me. Two men, Timothy and Epaphroditus, who were good teammates, who encouraged Paul and encouraged the Philippians in terms of living out and conducting themselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ. So when it comes to doing that in your life, who's on your team? Who are the people that you have surrounded yourself with? And by the way, what kind of teammate are you? And are you the kind of teammate that's encouraging other people in the life of following Jesus? So we're going to ask the question, what kind of people do you need on your team? And look at these two guys, Timothy and Epaphroditus. And then the flip side of that is, what kind of person do you need to be a good teammate? So first, you need people who are genuinely concerned for you. You need people who are genuinely concerned for you. Look at what Paul says about Timothy. He says, verse 20, I have no one else like him who takes a genuine interest in your welfare. You need people who truly care about you. You need people who truly care about your welfare, who truly care about what's going on in your life, who truly care what is in your best interest, who truly care about what is best for your heart. And that's the kind of guy that Paul says Timothy was. Now, here's the unspoken idea there in that passage. There are a lot of people who will show insincere and fake concern for you. There are a lot of false friends out there in life who, man, they'll buddy you up, smile at you, and pat you on the back, and love you until life gets tough. Or until you no longer have anything to offer them. until it's not advantageous for them to be in a relationship with you. They are fair weather friends. So long as things are going great, so long as you've got something to offer to them, they're there. But when times get tough and life gets bad, they're no longer there. And you don't need those kind of people on your team in life. You need genuine people. You need people who truly care about you. You need people who love you when times get tough. People who don't abandon you when things get difficult. People who don't just stroke your ego just to make you feel good or to make you like them or so they'll be in your good graces or so that you'll buy something from them or to promote their business or whatever else it may be. You need people who don't lie to you to maintain your friendship. You need people who don't gossip behind your back. You need people who genuinely care for you, who don't run away, who don't back down. You need people who, when you fall off in the muck and the mire in life, they jump in with you. And they say, I'm pulling you out. You need people who aren't afraid to get dirty in life. When you're in the midst of mire and grime in your life. You need people in your life who aren't afraid to kick your butt when you need it. You need friends who aren't afraid to get in your face because they care more for you than they care about your hurt feelings. You need people who will be honest with you. You need people who, when you are broken and hurting, they will pick you up and carry you to Jesus. There's a story in, I believe it's Mark chapter 3. There's a guy who says he's been paralyzed from birth. And some of his friends hear that Jesus is in town. And so they run to their friend and they each grab a corner of his mat, a corner of his bed, and they pick him up like a stretcher and they carry him to Jesus. And the crowd is so bad around Jesus that they can't get through the crowd to get to Jesus. So they carry him up on the roof of the house. They dig a hole in the roof of the house. I mean, I guess they don't care about property destruction at this point. They just need to get their friend to Jesus. They dig a hole in the roof in the house, and Jesus is standing there teaching, and all of a sudden stuff starts falling on him, and he looks up, and here's 4 smiling faces, looking down at him. They're like, we did it. And they lower their friend to Jesus. You need those kind of people in your life. You need people when you're hurting. You need people when you can't get up who say, I'm picking you up and I'm carrying you to Jesus. And it doesn't matter what I have to get through. It doesn't matter what I have to do. It doesn't matter what the difficulty. I am getting you to Jesus. People who show genuine concern for you. You need people who you can trust. And Paul says he knew Timothy was that kind of person. And the reason Paul knew Timothy was that kind of person is because he had seen it in Timothy's life. The Bible tells us in the book of Acts that Timothy was from Lystra, which is in Asia Minor, and on Paul's second missionary journey there, he takes Timothy along with him. Likely, Timothy had come to know Jesus Christ on Paul's first missionary journey there. Paul comes back, and Timothy, man, he's just growing, and he's trying to learn everything he can about following Jesus and living out that example and understanding the Scripture and what it means. He's a young guy. In fact, at that point, he was probably just a teenager when he comes along with Paul. And he goes with Paul, and he begins to travel with Paul, and everywhere Paul goes, Timothy goes. It gets to the point where when Paul's got a difficult assignment, when he's got a job that, like, he's got to send a letter to a church that's dealing with some difficulties, that's dealing with some problems, the guy he sends is Timothy. When Paul, if you look at the significant moments of low points in Paul's life, the significant moments of difficulty in Paul's life, who's always there? Timothy's always there. Paul says here in our passage that he was like a son with a father to him. And so Paul says to Timothy, I know that he will genuinely care for you. Epaphroditus was that kind of friend also. Genuine concern. Epaphroditus, from what we can gather, and all we know about him is what's here in the book of Philippians. But on his way to Paul, probably in the journey to get to Paul, he got sick. And it just continued to get worse and worse and worse until he was knocking on death's door at one point. The Philippians hear about it. They hear that Epaphroditus is sick. And so I want you to just listen to what it says here. Verse 26. It says, for he longs for all of you, and he is distressed because you heard he was ill. I mean, the guy's about to die. I mean, he almost dies for the sake of the gospel. And his concern is, my friends are worried about me. I mean, that's what he's concerned about. He's not concerned about, I'm going to die. He's concerned about, what's it doing to my friends? What kind of anguish are they going through? In fact, there it says that he was distressed when he heard that you were concerned about him. That word distressed is only used one other place in the New Testament. It's when Jesus is in the Garden of Gethsemane and he says, my soul is anguished unto death. And he's sweating, as it were, drops of blood. And that's the word that it says Epaphroditus felt because his friends were concerned about him. Genuine concern. People who are genuinely concerned about you and about what's going on in your life. You need those kind of people in your life. And you need to be the kind of person that for somebody else, you're that person. You are the person who will care about them no matter what. You are the person that they know, this person has my best interest at heart. You know, in my life, there's a short list of people that I know if I call at 3 o'clock in the morning and there's something going on, there's chaos going on in my life, that I can call them and they will be there as quickly as they can. But you need some of those people in your life. You need people who genuinely care for you, who have a genuine concern for you. Second, you need people who give priority to Jesus Christ. Priority to Jesus Christ. I love what he says there about Timothy. Verse 21, he says, for everyone looks out for his own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. Paul says there's way too many people in life who will take a look for their own interests. And I'm willing to bet you know some of them. I mean, there are way too many people in life who they're going to focus on themselves. They're going to focus on their own interests and what they want out of life. When time gets tough, our natural tendency is to look out for number one. Now, Paul is echoing what he said in the first of the chapter, where he says, don't look out for your own interests. And in there he says, but look out for the interests of others. But here he changes it just a little bit. And he says, everybody looks out for their own interests, not those of Jesus Christ. You see, when you are looking out for the interest of Jesus Christ, you should forever be putting others ahead of yourself. I mean, if you are looking out for the interest of Jesus, who gave his life away for other people, then when you are looking out for his interest, you are going to be putting other people ahead of yourself. If you want a good spiritual teammate, you want a friend who will put Christ first, not you. You want a friend who will put Christ first, not you. Okay, now, I mean, we all like friends who put us first, you know. People who put us up on a pedestal, people who continually do for us. I mean, that's great. But what you really need is a friend who will put Jesus first. Who will put the interests of Jesus Christ first. You want someone who will tell you to stop whining because you're grumbling and arguing. You want someone, when you've got trouble with your marriage and you come to them and, man, I think I'm ready to give up. They'll say, you get your butt back home and you love your wife. You need someone who will speak the truth of Christ into your life. You need someone, when you've got jacked up finances, they say, you need to sell that car, you need to sell that house, you need to get something affordable, you need to take charge of your finances. I mean, you need people who put Jesus ahead of you when it comes to life, and who will promote the cause of Jesus Christ. You need someone who will challenge you to follow Jesus and love Jesus more. Paul says about Epaphroditus, he almost died for the work of Christ. You need people who are so passionate about Jesus that it makes you go, man, I want to love Jesus more. I want to be like that. I mean, you need people who are ready to sacrifice their life for the sake of following Jesus Christ so that you want to follow him even more. This idea runs throughout Philippians. Paul says, Philippians chapter 1, for me to live is Christ and to die is gain. He says, I want to know Christ and the fellowship of sharing in his sufferings. He says, I consider everything else in my life a loss compared to the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord. He says, I want to know Christ. He says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. He is passionate about Jesus. And that's the kind of friends you need in life. People who will put Jesus first. If the goal of your life, and it should be as a follower of Christ, is to conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ, then you need other people who share that same goal. You need other people who are living life that way and challenging you to do the same thing. All right, the third kind of people you need on your team is you need people who work with you to share the gospel. People who work with you to share the gospel. Now, we know quite a bit about how Timothy worked with Paul to share the gospel. As I said, essentially everywhere Paul goes throughout the book of Acts from the time he encounters Timothy, Timothy is either going with him or he is being sent on a mission by Paul somewhere else in the work of sharing the gospel with other people. I mean, that becomes Timothy's life. Now, what we know about Epaphroditus, as I said, comes from this passage, but we know that he worked to help Paul spread the gospel in Rome. He says of Epaphroditus, he is my brother, he is my fellow worker. And fellow worker is the word that Paul uses in the rest of the Bible for this is a guy who was working together with me to share Jesus with other people. You need people who are helping you reach others with the good news. Now, there are some people who have the gift of evangelism. And I mean, they can talk about Jesus to anybody. I mean, it's just natural and it's easy for them. It just flows from them and oozes from them. Most of the rest of us don't. But we still have a responsibility to share the gospel with other people. And by the way, it's easier when you do it with a team. It's easier when you're working together with other people. Now, I don't mean, you have to have, 4 of you go and knock on somebody's door and scare the bejesus out of them because we're from such and such church or stuff like that, and give them some materials and those kind of things. I'm not talking about that. There's some value in doing some door-to-door work. If you got a friend and you want to do that, and, hey, I'll help you out and I'll give you some material that you can use, do something like that. But I'm talking about life in general. You need other people who are helping you. Like you've got a friend, man, and you've been working on him, and you've been inviting him, and you've been trying to share Christ with him, and it's not working. And then you get another team, you go, tag, you take it. And that other friend comes in and gives another angle, gives some more support, works together with you to share the gospel with other people. You need people who are helping you with a team approach, that you are praying together for some people to come to know Christ. That you are making connections with each other. That you are tag teaming on sharing and inviting and loving. That I want to encourage you. In fact, this as we come into spring and as we go into summer, in your journey group, get your whole journey group together and say, hey, let's spend some time doing some stuff to reach our neighborhoods together. Let's have some block parties. Let's have some barbecues. Let's do some things together to help each other in making connections with other people and reaching them with the gospel. I'll tell you a great thing that you can do with other believers is go on a mission trip together. I mean, man, one of the greatest things that's going to grow your relationships with other people, that's going to grow your desire to follow Jesus Christ, is going on a mission trip with him. We've got a mission trip coming up August 1st through the 5th? First week of August. We're going to North Dakota, fastest growing city in America. It's Williston, North Dakota. And you go, why in the world is Williston, North Dakota the fastest growing city in America? Because they've discovered a massive oil reserve in North Dakota. In fact, they're saying it may be larger than the oil fields in Saudi Arabia and Kuwait. So this massive oil field has been discovered in North Dakota. And so the city is just blowing out the seams. And people who are hungry to know Jesus. And so we've got an opportunity to go and help a church that's trying to plant churches and reach people with the gospel of Jesus Christ. That little advertisement is to say to you, that's a great way for you to understand some people who are on your team. And develop a team of people who are together with you in sharing the gospel and developing relationships with them and growing more spiritually and working together to communicate the gospel to other people. But you don't just have to do it in North Dakota. You can do it in Indiana, Texas. Working together with other people. And so like you make a connection with somebody and you find out that they work somewhere, they work at Chase. And I go, oh, hey man, I know Corey McDonald, he works at Chase. Have you ever met him? It's like, they're like, yeah, he's my boss and I hate him. Like, no, I know Corey, so you know what I'm going to do? After that, I'll say, yeah, Corey's a great guy. And then I'm going to go to Corey and I'm going to be like, hey, Corey, you know what? I met a guy the other day who he works with you, and I'm trying to connect with him and get him into the church. Would you also do that? Would you make that connection with him? And Corey's going to be like, no way, was that? No, Corey's going to be like, sure, I'll be happy to do that. So tag team and work that approach for reaching people with the gospel. All right, one last thing. When it comes to the kind of teammates you need to help you live your life in worthy of the gospel, you need people who will give their lives for you. People who will give their lives for you. Paul waits trial in Rome, and it's a trial that may end in his death for his commitment to Christ and for taking the gospel to those who have never heard. And so Paul is an example of laying his life down so that others might know Jesus. Timothy gives his life in service to Christ and to working alongside Paul. And so Timothy gives his life in service for Jesus Christ. Paul says about Epaphroditus that he is a fellow soldier who almost died for Christ and who risked his life for the Philippians and for Paul, who sacrificed, who laid down his life. Jesus says this, greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. Who have you got in life who would take a bullet for you? Who do you have in life who they would sacrifice themselves for you? Now, honestly, the chance for you to because sometimes people are like, yeah, I'd take a bullet for my friends. I'd die for them. I'd step in front of a truck for my friends. That's great, but that doesn't happen very often in life. But what does happen is a friend calls you up and is like, hey man, I need some help moving. Could you bring your truck and help me move, a friend's like, hey, I got a fence down and I need somebody to work on it. Could you work on that fence for me? Hey, my kids need to be picked up from school and I'm running behind. Could you help me out and pick up those kids? That's how you really lay down your life for your friends. On a daily basis, when you say, I'm available. I will sacrifice my comfort for you. I will sacrifice my desires for you. I will sacrifice my time for you. I will sacrifice my resources for you. I will lay down my life for you. People who love you and care for you, and most of all, who will encourage you to be more like Jesus Christ. You need those kinds of friends. You need the friends who say, I will do whatever it takes to get you to know Jesus more, to get you to love Jesus more, to get you to live for Jesus more, to get you to bring honor and glory to Jesus more, because I love Jesus and I want you to love him the way I do. And so they lay down their lives for you. And they give themselves up for you on a daily basis. You need those kind of friends in life. But to have those kind of friends, you've got to be that kind of friend. You've got to be the kind of person who lays down your life for other people. You've got to be the kind of person who you show genuine concern for other people. You've got to be the kind of person that Timothy and Epaphroditus were, who is working together with other people to share the gospel of Jesus Christ. Giving yourself away over and over and over again. You need teammates. But you got to remember the reason you need those teammates is so that you can conduct yourself in a manner worthy of the gospel of Jesus Christ. You see, the ultimate goal is not for you to be a better person. The ultimate goal is not for you to be happier in life. It's not for you to be fiscally more sound in life or to have a great marriage or great kids or any of those things. The ultimate goal is Jesus Christ. And living your life for him. And giving your life for his honor and his glory. And you need other people who will help you do that. By the way, there's one friend who'll do all those things for you. And it's Jesus. Jesus says, greater love has no man than this, than he lay down his life for his friends. He follows that statement up. What if we missed that? He says to his disciples, you are my friends. You know, if you've come into a relationship with Jesus Christ and you have trusted in him and he died on the cross for you and you have accepted that and said, hey, I want to follow him with all that I am, Jesus says to you, you're my friend. You're my friend. So today we're going to bow our heads and spend a little time in prayer. The band's going to come up and lead us in a time of commitment and decision. Man, maybe today you've surrounded yourself with friends who really aren't helping you out in life. Maybe you got some teammates, you got some people in your group who they're messed up. All they're encouraging is just more messed up and more brokenness in your life. Maybe you'd say today, I want some real friends. I want some people in my life who they're not just there for a good time. They're not just there, because they're messed up and they're broken and I'm broken and we're just helping each other be broken. I want some friends who genuinely are concerned for me, who genuinely love me. I need some people who aren't afraid to get in my face. I need some people who will jump into the pit with me and drag me out of the mud. I need some people who are encouraging me to follow Jesus and who their first concern is for Jesus Christ. So today, if you need those kind of people in your life, I want to encourage you to get connected and be a part of the Crossroads. Get connected in a journey group with some other people who love you and support you and pray for you and encourage you and do life together with you. Just walk through what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ with you. But maybe there's some of you here today and man, you don't have any friends like that. And the first friend you need is Jesus. If that's you today, I want you to say, Jesus, I'm tired of living a broken life, and I want to follow you. Jesus, I've heard today that you're the greatest friend ever because you gave your life away on the cross for me.